The Wizard of Oz. Once upon a time, there was a little girl called Dorothy, who lived with her Aunt Em and Uncle Henry on a small farm in Kansas, America. Her only friend was her dog, Toto. One day, Dorothy and Toto were playing out in the fields when they saw some very black clouds heading in their direction. A terrible storm was coming.
"Quick, Toto, let's take cover in the house,"
said Dorothy hastily. When they were inside the house, a strange thing happened. The house turned around and around, and then it rose up into the air. Dorothy closed her eyes and fell sound asleep. After a long time, Dorothy woke up and found herself in a strange place. Suddenly, she heard a small voice say,
"Welcome to the land of the Munchkins!"
Dorothy looked curiously at the small people who had said this. Dorothy's house had landed on top of the Wicked Witch of the East and killed her. The Munchkins were very grateful to finally gain their freedom. Suddenly, a beautiful lady appeared. She was dressed in white, and she was floating around elegantly in the air.
"I am the Good Witch of the North,"
she explained.
"You have landed in the land of Oz,"
she continued excitedly. The Good Witch went on to explain that in this land there lived 4 witches. The witches who lived in the north and south were good, whereas the east and west witches were wicked. Dorothy was uneasy and just wanted to go home.
"If you're a good witch, then please help us to go home to Kansas,"
Dorothy pleaded.
"I cannot grant that wish, my dear. You must follow the yellow brick road that leads to the Emerald City and go to the Wizard of Oz, who will be able to help you,"
she replied kindly. The Good Witch gave Dorothy a magical kiss on her forehead, and the Munchkins gave her the magical ruby slippers that the Wicked Witch of the East had worn. Before long, Dorothy was on her way to the Emerald City. A little way along the yellow brick road, Dorothy met the Scarecrow, who wanted to have a brain.
"I do so want to have a brain. Let me come with you and ask the wizard,"
he pleaded. Dorothy agreed, and they carried on the journey together. Then they met the Tin Man, who wanted a heart.
"I do so want to have a heart. Let me come with you and ask the wizard,"
he begged. The 3 of them continued along the yellow brick road, and before long, they met a cowardly lion who wanted to have courage.
"I do so want to have courage. Let me come with you and ask the wizard,"
he said enthusiastically. Hoping that the Wizard of Oz might give each of them their wish, they all continued on the journey to Oz together. Soon they reached the Emerald City. To their disappointment, they were told that their wishes could not be granted until the Wicked Witch of the West was killed. So Dorothy and her friends had no choice but to begin their journey in search of the Wicked Witch of the West. The Wicked Witch saw them coming. She laughed and said,
So, you think that you can challenge the mighty Witch of the West? You fools!
As soon as she had said this, she sent a pack of wild wolves to attack them. Then, she sent a flock of wild crows. After that, she sent a swarm of bees. Dorothy and her friends triumphantly defeated all of these. Next, they had to fight against the Wicked Witch's slaves, known as the Winkies. After that, they had to challenge the Winged Monkeys. The Winged Monkeys injured the Tin Man and the Scarecrow. Then the monkeys captured the lion. But the monkeys could not harm Dorothy, as she was protected by the magical kiss on her forehead.
She must be protected by some magical spell.
They crowed.
Let's take her to the Wicked Witch's castle deep in the forest.
When she got there, Dorothy was forced to work as a slave for the Wicked Witch, although the Wicked Witch could not harm her, as she was protected by the power of good, which is much greater than the power of evil. The Wicked Witch knew the power of Dorothy's ruby slippers and longed to own them.
I want those shoes!
She said over and over again to herself. So she plotted to get Dorothy to remove them. One day, Dorothy tripped on the wet floor that she was cleaning. And to her horror, one of her shoes came off. The Wicked Witch quickly snatched it and put it on.
Give me back my shoe, you evil witch. It was given to me.
She yelled. Dorothy picked up the bucket of water she had been using to wash the floor and threw it over the witch. Instantly, the witch began to melt away. All that was left of the witch was the ruby slipper. Dorothy quickly put it on her own foot again. Finally, Dorothy was no longer a prisoner.
Come on, lion, you are now free.
She said hastily as she released the lion from his cage. The Winkies and the Winged Monkeys were no longer slaves. So together, they set out to repair and rescue the Tin Man and the Scarecrow. Soon, Dorothy and her friends set off on their journey back to the Emerald City. Finally, they reached the gates of the Emerald City. They were then taken to the wizard. Dorothy spoke up.
We have destroyed the Wicked Witch, and now we want you to grant each of our wishes.
There was no answer. This made them all very angry. Suddenly, the lion gave a very loud and terrifying roar. The roar frightened Toto, who leapt away in surprise, and in doing so, he knocked over a screen. which fell with a deafening crash. To their surprise, they saw a little old man with a bald head and a wrinkled face standing there. The man seemed as surprised as Dorothy and her friends. In a trembling voice, the little old man said,
As you can see, I'm not a wizard at all, but a common man.
Then he told them his strange story of how he went up in a hot air balloon. And when he finally landed, he was in a strange land, where the people thought that he was a great and powerful wizard. So he ordered them to build the Emerald City. But he remained good to the people.
My greatest fear in the world is of witches and their evil powers. Now that both of the wicked witches have been destroyed, I feel more confident to admit that I can't really grant people's wishes.
He said slowly,
However, I think as an old man, I can offer you some of my wisdom.
He said kindly. To the Scarecrow, he said,
You don't need brains. You learn something every day. Experience is the only thing that brings knowledge.
To the Lion, he said,
You have plenty of courage. All that you really need is some confidence in yourself.
To the Tin Man, he said,
You are lucky not to have a heart, for a heart is what makes most people unhappy.
He told them all to come back the next day if they still really wanted what they had wished for. Lastly, he spoke to Dorothy. He told her that her request would take a little longer to fulfill, but in the meantime, they were to keep his secret. They all agreed to say nothing. The next day, the Lion, the Tin Man, and the Scarecrow all returned to the Emerald Palace. The Wizard of Oz poured some orange liquid into the Scarecrow's head and told him that from then on he would be a great man, for he had brains. To the Tin Man, he put a heart made of silk and stuffed with sawdust into the left side of his chest. As he did this, he said,
Now, you have a heart that any man would be proud of.
To the Lion,
Once this drink is inside you, you will have courage.
and he made him drink something. After 4 days, the Wizard of Oz sent for Dorothy, and he told her that he was going to make a hot air balloon. When it was ready, he got into the basket and told the people that he would be away for some time.
During my absence, Mr. Scarecrow will be in charge here.
He said. Meanwhile, Dorothy was hunting for Toto, who had wandered off. To her horror, she saw the balloon rising without her.
Wait for us!
She screamed, but it was too late. The balloon was soaring further and further up into the sky. That was the last that anyone ever saw of the Wizard of Oz.
How will I ever get home to Kansas now?
Dorothy said sadly. She and her friends thought very hard, And then they remembered the Good Witch of the South.
Let's go and find her.
They all said in unison. The journey to the south was not easy. Dorothy and her friends had to overcome many strange creatures before arriving at the Good Witch's castle. Dorothy recounted the entire adventure to the Good Witch.
Now I've told you my story. Please help me to get home.
She begged. The Good Witch told Dorothy to knock the heels of her magic ruby slippers together 3 times and tell the shoes to carry her wherever she wished to go.
Take me home to Kansas now.
Dorothy commanded as she firmly knocked the heels together. So, Dorothy said a teary goodbye to her friends. Within a few seconds, she was whirling through the air. Suddenly, Dorothy saw her Aunt Em coming out of the house. Dorothy ran forward and hugged Aunt Em, telling her how happy she was to be back home again.